Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to another podcast from the Pure Digital Passion with me, Moses Kemibaro. And today, my guest is Andrew Lupembe, who's the Networks Director at Vodacom Tanzania. Karibu sana, Andrew.
Asante sana. Thank you very much, Moses. I'm glad to
Great.
be here.
Thank you
I'm
so much.
happy.
So today we're having a conversation with Andrew. Andrew is in charge of all matters network at Vodacom Tanzania, and he basically is recently been in charge of something that's very impressive. Tanzania, I believe, is the first market in the region where we've been able to see 5G rolled out extensively. And again, he's the man behind that process. So, Andrew, again, once again, congratulations on this particular development and wanting to essentially just take us through what this journey looked like from start to finish.
Thank you very much. The journey has been a bit long. We started operating in Tanzania around 2000 as a 2G provider, mainly focusing on voice and SMS. And obviously, we grew together with the technology, providing Edge as a mobile internet option. And then we grew somewhere around 2005 and 6, introduction of the 3G in this part of the world. That grew and went with us, took us through up until mid 2010s, I think around 2015, when we actually launched 4G. Obviously, we were following up the world trend as well as the needs of the consumers in terms of data. And here we are today. We've just launched on the 1st of September 5G, our newest edition technology in Vodacom Tanzania.
Fantastic. What are some of the challenges you encountered in achieving this? Because I know 5G, even when you think about it, not just in East Africa but globally, many countries and many networks are not yet there. But I think Vodacom has to be one of the first, in Tanzania to have done this. But what are some of the challenges you saw moving, from 4G to 5G?
So maybe before going to the challenge, um, I'll just speak on two things. One is when we were launching 4G, our thought process in Vodacom Tanzania was we need to be there offering 4G at international standards, not a mediocre 4G, but 4G that could achieve the speeds of the actual 4G. So with that in mind, we actually built our network, and the backhauling of the network, we started pushing fiber to the sites to ensure that it will guarantee us that whatever we are offering to the consumer, that particular traffic can be backhauled back to the core, to the internet for consumption. Now, coming to 5G, we already had a metro fiber, and almost, for example, for Dar es Salaam, over 85% of our sites are connected to fiber. And network-wide, we are somewhere sitting over 35% of the sites. Obviously, the rural sites are not connected to the fiber yet, but we are going there. So this is the one that is the number one option that saw us to say, look, we are capable of doing this. Let's pursue that. The second challenge is a notion that there's no use case in 5G, where for us, we looked at it, we said, look, there is an opportunity. Yes, we've got a superior technology, fiber to the home, but for our market in Tanzania, it's not as vast as in European countries. So there's still some space for mobile connectivity via a wireless connection. So Vodacom Tanzania had a fixed wireless solution, not as aggressive as we want to be, but we said, why don't we expand from our fixed offering to our consumers to a 5G, where somebody will buy a 5G dongle, will have an enhanced mobile broadband experience, and we started from there. And this is how we overcame our challenge.
Fantastic, fantastic. Now, obviously, 5G, and I love the way that you just mentioned that you had to have the fundamental network in place. The infrastructure had to be there to support the 5G capabilities. But I'm wondering also at the same time, obviously the investment I'm sure has been substantial, and I'm curious to know, driving that decision to provide more access to your consumers and your businesses. What sort of drivers were there behind making some of those decisions, especially the investment behind it?
So the biggest driver is our strategy to start with. Today, our strategy is one of the pillars of our strategy, apart from leading Tanzanians into the digital era, is to pursue fixed solution to the enterprise consumers. So that drove us to say, look, what product can we come with that will complement our offering today of the normal 2G, 3G, 4G to the so-called consumer enterprise as well as home, because we wanted to own the home.
Okay.
And we came up when we said, look, we believe 5G is the product.
Fantastic. And what's the current coverage of your 5G and what's the rollout plan looking like for the rest of Tanzania?
So at this moment in time, our coverage is purely in Dar es Salaam. But during the launch, we mentioned that we promised within 3 months, we'll cover about 18 different cities and towns with over 200 sites of 5G. Mainly because we already started seeing some potentials in outside Dar es Salaam, not necessarily Dar es Salaam, but other major cities in Tanzania.
So already the demand is there for that extension.
Yes, there's a demand for connectivity for small office, home office, as well as enterprise, as well as home connectivities outside Dar es Salaam as well. Not necessarily in Dar es Salaam, but yes, Dar es Salaam drives since it's a commercial hub, but other cities like Mwanza, Arusha, the capital city, Dodoma, and Mbeya, that are fundamentally big, that also they've got demand of home connectivity as well as enterprise connectivity.
Fantastic. And what are some of the major factors, I think, when rolling out a 5G network, and this is a trend we're not seeing just regionally, but globally, is this issue of frequency spectrum, the availability of the fact that some of these frequencies are already occupied with other technologies. How are you navigating this in terms of within Tanzania? How are you able to navigate the issue of frequency availability?
So I'll answer this particular narrative in two folds. One is in order to be able to see the future, one has to actually plan for the future now. So for us in Vodacom, since around 2017, there was a spectrum auction of 700 megahertz. That spectrum of 700 megahertz is actually called a digital dividend 2. It is taken away from the broadcasters and it was designated as a mobile spectrum. We participated that with having an eye of the 5G for the future because it was geared to be on transition as a 4G spectrum as well as 5G. Prior to that, we were using spectrum of 3500 megahertz, 3.5 gig for WiMAX back in 2008, 9, 10, in which we converted it to, we call it fixed LTE or TD LTE, because there are two versions of LTE. There's mobility LTE, 4G, and there's a fixed 4G, in which I mentioned earlier that it's mainly to drive the connectivity of enterprise, small, medium enterprises. And this is the spectrum that we have actually used to launch 5G. So we had about contiguous 40 meg of it, where, based on the regulation of Tanzania, that spectrum is technology neutral, we thought, look, why not being the first in the market to launch 5G? Because we believe that the opportunity is there now. The actual CPEs have already started going down. They used to be sold over $2,000. Now they're sitting at around between $150 and $300, depending on which vendor you buy them from and the volume that you purchase.
I presume you're talking about the mobile devices when you're talking, or this is the gadget that connects you to the actual network?
Yes, there is mobile devices, but there is a consumer premise equipment. We term it as, but is also known as internet routers, commonly known as internet routers or home devices. Yeah.
So as we go to that point, actually, because I imagine that from an SME or a small office, small business, naturally they'd be buying such, in order to get on. But what about the consumer side? Because I think one of the biggest impediments to 5G adoption that we are going to see going forward is the affordability of the devices. I think even when people move from 3G to 4G, We saw initially there's a very small range of devices available, usually very costly. And then now again in 5G, I think we're seeing devices that are fairly expensive for the average consumer. So I'm just curious in terms of Vodacom's strategy to get the Mwananchi connected on affordable 5G devices. There's some initiatives behind that. Are there some steps that Vodacom Tanzania is taking to address that gap?
Yes, we have. Basically, the handsets that support 5G, they are fairly expensive. They're not the usual devices that you could get for under $100. So us as Vodacom, one of the things that we are doing now, or we are in the process of finalizing, was, as these higher technologies come, these device manufacturers like the vendors like Samsung, OnePlus, Xiaomi, Huawei, Apple, they tend to control how they open up these higher technologies per market. So as an example, in most of the African countries that have launched 5G, similarly to Vodacom Tanzania, you had to go back to the likes of Apple to say, look, Apple, we've got 5G now commercial launch in Tanzania. Would like you to open and send us the updated firmware, country specific, that allows your devices to latch into our 5G network. This is still in transition. It's going to be completed soon, and to allow mobile users to see or to latch into 5G. In terms of the device affordability, we've been doing device financing, not at a larger scale, compared to our neighboring countries like Kenya, but we thought we'd scale it up now to do more, so that somebody can walk into our stores, get a device, pay slowly for over a period of some time, maybe a year, to start enjoying newer services, especially these devices that support higher technologies, 4G, 5G. So this plan has always been there from 4G, but we're scaling up now with the 5G.
Okay, okay. When you look at the market, and I think look at it from both enterprise and consumer, when you think about the fact that I think for most of us, of course, now that we're used to 4G, 3G feels very slow on the few occasions that you see it on your device. And then now 5G is again massively faster than 4G. So I'm just curious from your perspective, when you look at both consumer and maybe enterprise or business segments in Tanzania, what sort of use cases are you seeing or do you imagine will be there for 5G in Tanzania at inception and beyond?
So for Tanzania, we see the very first use case, and that will take over very quick, is home connection, small and medium enterprise connection, for the fact that these offices, they could afford a monthly payment, unlimited internet access, and it could save a lot of their equipment at the office, be it wireless printer, be it office, a number of people, because it's in enhanced mobile broadband, compared to the normal consumer that is today using his device for 4G, and some of the consumers still complain that the tariffs of 4G are still high. So we see the use cases more into connectivity, home connectivity, and other related users, as opposed to the normal mwananchi that uses them to just browse internet. So that is the first one. Other uses that we see and we believe in Tanzania is going to focus is because of remote access or remote connectivity, especially for the doctors that are sitting somewhere. They need to have a very good connection, whether it's at their home office or what, and then they can assist these small hospitals that don't have these experts in terms of medical health care, so to speak. That is another use case that we believe it is gonna take over. The third one that I passionately believe in is we are driving a lot of digitizing the farmers, and we believe the large-scale farmers could actually benefit having either cameras or devices that monitor their farms and connect to the devices. Because if you've got a lot of devices that connect to your farms, whether it be automated irrigation systems, or some of them might want to deploy drones to be able to check the vastness of their farms, especially these farmers like tea plantations, etc., or sugarcane, so that they could produce for the manufacturers of sugar. So it could work very well with this kind of connectivity.
Fantastic. So even IoT now becomes one of the key scenarios where industries and sectors can benefit, right?
Exactly. So as an example, in Tanzania, I know for a fact that our grid supplier, TANESCO, they announced back in, I think, March or April, that they are looking for a solution where today it's a prepaid mainly, but when a consumer buys a prepaid unit, electric unit, they get a token where they need to walk around with a token and go and load it again to their machine. So they are looking for an IoT solution where once somebody buys for a token, they'll be like buying for subscription, normal subscription like the DSTVs of this world, where once you pay, that token is delivered directly to your meter, and then you can enjoy the additional units of electricity. So we believe that it will open doors for use cases like those IoTs and other IoT solutions, not necessarily power utility, even water utility devices that requires IoT solution. Or the likes of the people, I know in Kenya, they've got this company called MGas, where they're distributing these gas units, and then they can come and refill the gas as you consume. So these are the use cases that I know they work on 4G, but they will largely work on a typical network like 5G and open up that IoT and multiple devices connected.
Okay. So there's a very interesting sentiment, and this is something you hear especially from international markets where, experts and analysts are saying that, Africa, should not be even moving to 5G yet, given that we've not yet fully exploited 4G. And especially when you consider the various markets, the demographics, till today, even a 4G device for many Mwananchi or regular consumers is still quite expensive. I don't know what your thoughts are around that perspective, especially given that, when you roll out a 5G network, this is millions and millions of dollars required to do so. So I don't know if you have any thoughts of that sort of opinion or perspective that, Africa should be, prioritizing 4G before 5G.
Yes, I have a thought. My thought is nothing works in serial mode, meaning, in the old days, we used to have PSTN calls, and countries, African countries, not a lot of African countries, they don't even have enough fixed lines, the old fixed lines to
Yeah.
cover the whole population. But when mobility came into place, it took over and simplified. Similarly, in Tanzania or in Africa, we don't have a very strong banking system. There is a few countries like South Africa or Egypt where the banking system is very strong. But when we introduced the M-Pesa, mobile money, it propelled. For me, it gives us a reason to say, look, you can't wait for one particular technology to take over before you start another one, but rather as use cases come and opportunities arise, you jump into that technology to address some of the needs that are there per particular segment. So for me, yes, it's a bit expensive to launch 5G. But again, even 4G, 3G, 2G, it's infrastructure heavy, and mobile operators, they spend a lot of money building this infrastructure. But in return, because there are many users that they target and different use cases, that could actually pay off over a period of time for that investment. So my view is, if there's an opportunity in a certain segment, like what we saw in Tanzania, you jump into that technology because that technology becomes a de facto in the near future. As I'll say, I always joke to some of the colleagues that share the same sentiment. And I said, imagine today, we don't have a lot of people that have got computers, but you need to jump into the latest model so that you can take advantage of whatever technologies in computing that are there today. So today, 5G gives you endless possibilities of aggregating a lot of devices in this form: ultra low latency, more reliable, massive capacity. For a person or a company can actually have a lot of things connected and their premises with the 5G technology as compared to where we were together. So if that is there and it's available, for me, it's good enough to ask a certain operator to pursue that opportunity.
Okay. I love the way you're looking at it in terms of, if it's almost like that famous saying, if you build it, they will come. Meaning that, you need to just make sure that the that capability exists, and then hopefully the market itself now will address the opportunities that it creates, right?
Correct, yeah.
Right. Were there any things that you had to go through from maybe a licensing perspective with the regulator to secure this 5G license? Was this a straightforward process? Did it take a lot of time? Because naturally, there's also the element of licensing to have a 5G network, I imagine.
Yes. So for Tanzania, we are thankful that our licensing framework um, was technology neutral since around 2005, where in initial step prior to 2005, you would want to apply for a license to deploy, let's say 2G, 3G. If we were to go for, for 2G, if we were to go for 3G, another license. But that was taken away, and the spectrum that was issued was technology neutral, meaning if on the ITU and regional allocation of spectrum allows for a particular technology, that spectrum, an operator will feel free to use it to that technology. So it gives us an opportunity as Vodacom, as an example, when we were buying new equipment, as we expanded the network, to try as much as possible focus for the future. So for example, 3-4 years ago, as we were modernizing our network to enhance 4G coverage, we always asked our vendors, the Huawei's, the Ericssons, the Nokias of this world, that give me infrastructure that supports today's use cases and potential with minimum upgrade, probably only software twitch, it can support the future technology. And we have been going that way to a point where, yes, we launched 5G, but the core network is already capable of supporting 5G. The only thing that we needed to buy was some few radios that could push that 5G signal to devices and move on.
Fantastic, fantastic. I want to ask you possibly a controversial question, and I know that this may not have any grounding, there's no scientific basis, but there's these global rumors that 5G could have health-related risks for people, and in fact we've seen instances where in some countries people have been vandalizing the networks. I don't know. Again, this is highly speculative. There's no scientific basis for this, but do you see or have any opinion about this point of view?
Yes. You see, a lot of things that happen in today's world is misinformation. Um, I do not diffuse the fact that almost everything has got a certain side effect or effect depending on the usage. So on the 5G, there was a lot of things during the COVID that actually 5G brought COVID.
Yes, I saw
Without
that.
people forgot that the spectrum that was used for 5G, the frequencies that were used, these 700 megahertz, were already used by broadcasters on the analog broadcasting, television broadcasting, prior to this digital broadcasting that we see today with a bit of a setup. So if it were to bring diseases, we would have had diseases since in the 80s when we had analog televisions. But again, I think it's misinformation. So today we've got this organization called ICNIRP organization, ICNIRP, which stands for International Commission in Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection. So this particular organization actually tells the story of some of the guidelines in every frequency and the effects thereof. So if somebody wants to go to a fact, they will probably reach to this kind of documentation and see. There's a lot of scientific research that says, yes, radiation is bad. Any radiation is bad. Even sun radiation is bad. But with sunscreens and limited exposure, we survive this world until we are moved. So for me, the controversy can be answered in one form, that the spectrums and frequencies that are used today by 5G, some of them we are already using them on 4G. Spectrum like 700 megahertz in a lot of markets, spectrum of 2300 megahertz, even 3500 megahertz. It used to be an unlicensed spectrum and people use for WiMAX, as well as some of point to multi-point kind of connectivities in the later part of 2005 to 2010, before the inception of 4G. So it's just information for me. It's controversial, I know, but I think with the right information, we'll know that, look, the 5G is not the cause of some of the diseases, but some of the diseases are caused by something else, not
True.
necessarily. For example, I saw a clip where somebody was cutting a fiber, saying fiber is responsible for 5G. So you can imagine that fiber doesn't cause radiation.
Yeah.
It's sitting underground. So how will it be radiating 5G signals?
Yeah, I
For
think
me, it's more
ultimately
of,
it's more misinformation than anything else. I think lack of
it's more of a
knowledge.
misinformation.
Yeah. So tell me more. I mean, I think the last 2.5 years must have been very interesting for you at the network because obviously, internet use, digital transformation changed everything. We're having webinars every day now. We have become used to this working from home. And I'm sure that, you've seen many, many transitions and evolutions around how your customers are using the network vis-a-vis, the post-pandemic scenario we're in today. And I'm just wondering if you want to share any insights from that particular, the last 2.5 years and the things that you've seen happen as far as how the network is currently being used.
Yes. So in the last 2 years, networks apart from Tanzania, they saw an expansion or high demand of usage of connectivity from home when COVID hit, and we were forced to use these technologies that we used to think they are far-fetched. Things like home connectivity, remote connectivity, and we saw a bit of a rise of different tools that enabled people like Google Meet, Zoom, and Skype and Teams that came to effect to allow collaboration through remote, where people can work anywhere. So in Tanzania specific, as you know, that we never closed down the country. We only closed down for 3 months back in 2020 for whatever reason that our government decided to do. But it didn't change much in terms of connectivity. But we also have foreign companies, foreign organizations, or multinational companies that adopted policies of work from home, that instituted their employees or the people that work for them to work from home, and that demand rises. That demand hasn't gone down. So now it has become like a norm that people choose to either work from home or the people that needs to go to work from office. And I know for sure a lot of other companies, they updated their policies to allow at least a certain percentage of people, even a bigger percentage of people, to work from home due to the fact that these tools are available, the likes of Zoom, Teams, Skype for Business, which has been replaced by Teams,
Yes.
that enables people to collaborate, share files, and have real-time actually conversation as if people are in the same room. So for me, I think this last 2 years was interesting for technology and digitization, because it saw a lot of digital. Even for Tanzania, there was quite a rise in terms of usage of mobile money. Because remember, people were associating COVID. If you touch the note, you might get COVID, and then
Yeah.
they moved the money into electronic. So was a bit of beneficial to the banking sector as well as the government that money went into the electronic form, which was a plus for the betterment of human society.
Fantastic. We have a little bit of time left, and I'd like to ask you two last questions. One is beyond 5G, the next 2 to 5 years, where do you see Vodacom Tanzania going? And then also, are there any final comments or thoughts you'd like to share around the 5G initiative for Vodacom Tanzania?
So Vodacom is still pursuing connectivity to fix consumers, meaning fiber to the home, fiber to the business, because there's an opportunity to fiberize the country. Vodacom still sees there's an opportunity for 5G, go beyond Dar es Salaam and other regions, probably to cover the rest of the country, especially the big cities or the headquarters of the regional administration, at least because that's where there's big economy. Obviously, at a larger, grander things, people have started talking what is in there. 5G is already there. Probably in the next 6 years or so, there could be an inception of 6G, and that will probably intense even further in terms of connectivity and support for reliability. We, part of the Vodafone group, we follow these trends closely. So they are my counterpart sister company like Vodafone. They sit in this standards board and see what is out there. So we follow. It's still open. I believe there's greater good for humanity with the technology advancement. My thoughts in this is we'll probably see a lot. There's a lot of transformation. There's a lot of digitization that is going to come, or taking advantage of the technology to lead our countries, especially African countries, into the digital for the betterment of humanity.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Andrew. I'm grateful for you taking time to join us here on the Pure Digital podcast, and looking forward to seeing many great things coming out of Vodacom Tanzania as a market leader, sort of setting the trend and making the big bets for the future. So asante sana, and we look forward to having you with us once again.
Thanks, Moses. Asante sana for being here. Looking forward to another podcast with you. Thank you.
Thank you.